So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to move over to part two. Part two is called Amir Taaki Reveals, who was an early Bitcoin developer. And we go through Epstein, contact, and some of the attempts to infiltrate and compromise Bitcoin developers from his experience. So I hope you enjoy the interview. There are things in this interview that have never been revealed. And so bear with it and watch it till the end. And I'll see you next week on Simon Dixon Hard Talk Live. Enjoy the interview.
But just before we do, just for a point of clarification, because I think that's really important. I think Simon has clarified it a number of times, but maybe your audience is listening to it for the first time, which is that you put out a tweet saying that you had no association with Epstein. And I believe Simon misread it and thought it said the opposite. So Simon, if you want to clarify, yeah, go ahead.
The problem was that Simon said that I said in my message that I admitted to taking Epstein funding, which we didn't. So I don't mind. You can say whatever you want. That's cool. You can put whatever. You can say, oh, you don't believe me, but if you quote me, it's good to quote me as actually what I was saying. So that's the only issue I have. I don't have any issue with anything else. People are free to their own opinion.
Yeah, and that's just a minor point of clarification. But Simon, if you want to jump in on that.
Not minor. I'll just tell you about that, because most people, and you know this, most people don't go check out the source info. They'd be like, oh, okay, Simon said that. That's what happened. So that's why it's important to use the facts to build whatever narrative, but also like the facts are represented authentically. But I don't have any issue with anything else. If you're claiming on CIA, whatever, it's okay.
We will come to that, but let Simon jump in here. Go ahead, Simon.
Yeah, let me just start with the background. So this is live, right?
Yeah, it's live. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So I met Amir Taaki at the first Bitcoin conference in Europe in 2011, where I was invited to be a speaker, and that was your conference, right, Amir? You organized it?
Yeah, the 2011 and the 2012 one. Which I think you spoke at both of them.
I definitely spoke at the 2011 one, and I think I also saw you at some conferences in London back in like the Mike Hearn days and things like that. And
both of those.
Yeah.
So the 2012 one.
Yeah. So that's our background. Obviously I care about Bitcoin. So as soon as Bitcoin was mentioned in the Epstein files, I pretty much stayed up for about 48 hours analyzing all the different files. And in midst of that, I was getting out all the emails. I was, trying to put together an understanding. And in that, Sulaiman invited me to come onto his channel. And this was in the midst of like the 3 million drop. Everyone was trying to figure out what's going on. And so I was really focusing in on that. And then when I noticed that Jeffrey Epstein had contacted Amir Taaki, I looked on Amir Taaki's post to see whether he'd responded to it. And I saw his post and his response. I made an error in Sulaiman's interview with me, which was it originally went out on Sulaiman's channel. I was going through Coinbase, I was going through Blockstream, I was going through MIT, I was going through Digital Currency Initiative, I was going through Peter Thiel's emails, and I made something which I think Amir Taaki genuinely can take contention with, because I said in his response that he confirmed he had received funding from Jeffrey Epstein, which was completely false, completely inaccurate. Now, Amir contacted me saying via Ray Youssef, why are you lying? And you can believe me or not, but I wasn't actually lying. I misrepresented.
Okay. It's okay.
Yeah. So that's the background. I misrepresented it. And then what I did is I immediately went on Sulaiman's space and corrected it, which Sulaiman can confirm.
That's right, yeah.
And then I went on my YouTube channel to make sure that all my listeners, which was a larger audience that would know about Bitcoin, knew that I made that mistake, and I did it at the beginning of the video and the end of the video, because I do actually think it's a very bad thing to misrepresent, and I apologize for that misrepresentation. It was my mistake. Everything else I can't vouch for, because we want to get Amir on here to talk about things that I don't know about, and he's going to share, and we're going to ask some questions, and he gets to say things in his words. But I can't vouch for any of it because I don't know anything about it other than what Amir says and what other people might say.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you so much. That's okay.
So let's get into that. And this is what you're talking about in terms of the Epstein files. You're talking about your engagement or interaction with Epstein. So first of all, if you want to explain, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but is it Jason Calacanis?
Yeah, Jason Calacanis.
What's his relationship with you?
I don't know. Like, he just invited me on his podcast once with Gavin Andresen. That was like the very first Bitcoin podcast that happened.
Okay.
That was it. I thought he was a cool guy because he was in the video, he was going, "Oh, I love you guys. Yo, you're amazing, blah, blah." So then I was shocked, actually, to see his email with Epstein, where he's telling Epstein, these guys are bad news, stay away from them, talking about me and Gavin Andresen. So that was surprising. But yeah, I thought he was all right. But
I mean, I don't know which email you're referring to there in terms of saying you're bad news. Maybe you can elaborate on that one. The one I've got here is Jeffrey Epstein writes to Jason Calacanis and says, quote, "I would like to get," and Simon, if you can elaborate on who this guy is. I believe he's that famous guy, right? Jason Calacanis. I think I know him. Second.
So what you said, he was your business partner, is that correct, Amir? Or you had
Jason Calacanis.
No, Jason
Yes.
No, my business partner was Donald Norman, which is also in the email. And you can see after he visits the island, he actually sends a reply.
All right, sorry, starting right at the beginning. So let's make sure we know who everyone is. So Jason Calacanis was emailing Jeffrey Epstein,
Yeah.
And you appeared on his podcast. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is that still like live? People can look it up back in the day.
Actually, he's deleted it, but there's a backup of it, and I've seen the backup, and I actually have a copy of the backup. It's called This Week in Startups, and it's Gavin Andresen and Amir Taaki. That was the very first.
So he's like
Jason Calacanis is the guy from All In Podcast, correct?
Yeah, he's like a VC, I don't know, you say Silicon Valley investor, and he likes to talk about new technologies.
Okay.
And,
so this is the email I've got. Let me read this, and then maybe Simon's got some questions for you. Jeffrey Epstein emails Jason Calacanis, who is part of the All In podcast. I believe it's him and like 3 other guys. I think Elon Musk's been on it very recently. And the Epstein emails and says, "I would like to get in touch with the Bitcoin guys. I am happy to see you doing well." Now, when he says the Bitcoin guys, it does seem to suggest that there was previous interaction where he'd possibly relayed some names to him, or it could be just bad English. Both are possible. But Epstein replies to Jason and says, "Hey pal, running out to a kid's birthday party. We'll dig up their info. So you know, there are folks who are not trying to build a business. They are crazy open source folks who are radical. Their motivation is more in line with Wikipedia or WikiLeaks. I had these guys on my TV show on the web, YouTube Startups, and Gavin Andresen and Amir Taaki, Bitcoin." So he mentioned you. So I think that's what you're referring to in terms of a negative light. But Simon, you had some questions?
Yeah.
What date's that?
This is 6th of, well, it's either 6th of April 2011 or the 4th of June 2011, depending on if it's the American style or the British style.
So this is consistent with if you were around in 2011, like Gavin Andresen was the lead developer of Bitcoin. Amir Taaki had, been kind of somebody that was publicly talking about Bitcoin, and I think you were invited to BBC and stuff like that, right, Amir? Yeah.
Yeah. So I had like a lot of people emailing me all the time, a lot of big media, not in that time, but afterwards, yes. In that time when Epstein emailed me, I was getting a lot of email. I was running the second biggest exchange as well on the market after MTGOX. So, initial reaction, you get.
Let's start with those early interactions. So you got into Bitcoin. You were interacting with Bitcoin core developers, is that correct?
Actually, when I got into Bitcoin was pretty much worthless, and there was only 5 of us, which was me, Gavin Andresen, Jeff Garzik, Neil Schneider, and Peter Willer. Those were the main 5 around Bitcoin. And actually, our names were listed on bitcoin.org.
Yeah. And you were in London at the time. And then you started. Is that correct?
Actually, I think when Epstein. No, I think I was in London afterwards. When Epstein emailed us, we had an office in Warsaw in Poland. That was when we were running the exchange. Later, I moved to London. Was after we dissolved that business.
Yeah. So you weren't actually a Bitcoin core developer, but you were hanging around with the Bitcoin core developers, or it was just Gavin Andresen and Jeff Garzik and people like that?
Actually, I did initially start working on Bitcoin, but I started to come into a conflict with Gavin Andresen because Gavin Andresen had a very fundamental different idea of what Bitcoin should be. He was like, he saw Bitcoin as a startup, and he wanted to get big banks. He wanted to get it integrated into he saw it as a payments innovation. He saw it as his own personal startup, whereas I saw it as an open source project, freedom money. And because also he acquired this status as like, he actually called himself chief scientist. Nobody gave him that title. He anointed himself. And then he felt threatened by other people like me climbing up the ranks, and he started to try and shut me out of development. So initially I was actually working on Bitcoin, but he kept blocking all of my work. And so we actually forked Bitcoin initially, but then later, after we were working on the fork, then we actually started to work on our own rewrite of Bitcoin. And actually that's where I started also the BIP process, and also developed the first anonymity techniques on Bitcoin, CoinJoin, and stealth addresses. So I was actually working on Bitcoin code very heavily. In fact, that was the main thing I was working on. And it was actually the main reason why we shut down that business, was because I was actually running an exchange, which now I look back on it and I'm like, well, that was really stupid, because being a Bitcoin developer, there is no money in being a Bitcoin developer. In fact, it's negative EV. You're working on Bitcoin, you're contributing value to Bitcoin. There's no way to capture value back. But having the biggest exchange on the market, that is massively EV. But I closed it down because it literally just became me going to bank meetings all the time. And I actually wanted to work on Bitcoin technology, which I saw as more impactful. So that's like a bit of context.
Let me just get a few details there. So when you were working on Bitcoin, how many people had commit access and maintainer access? Was that Gavin Andresen, Jeff Garzik? Did you have one, or did other people?
I can't remember, honestly. It's so long ago.
Okay. But then you forked off the project and started
kind of like what. Also, yeah. I actually had. You can find it on Web Archive. It's called bitcoinmedia.com, and you can see articles actually from that period, from the Epstein period. Well, we're calling it the Epstein period now, but that period, 2011, early 2011, where I'm actually writing about stuff happening in Bitcoin. One of the articles is about Gavin Andresen trying to push through this major protocol change in Bitcoin that me and Luke Jr. So Luke Jr. was also around then, and actually it was me and Luke Jr. who were both trying to push back against what was happening. So even though a lot of people now, they don't like Luke Jr., I still have a lot of respect for him, because he was someone that always was very kind of ideological and kind of.
So let get this right, because it becomes really relevant. It's really interesting. So from your perspective, you had an ideological battle with Gavin Andresen. For those that don't know, Gavin Andresen was the developer that Satoshi Nakamoto kind of handed the project over to. You didn't actually commit any code to the version of the code that Gavin Andresen was working on, but there was an ideological difference, and you were more aligned with Luke Dash Jr. And what about Jeff Garzak? Was he kind of on Gavin Andresen's side, or where you guys went?
I have a lot of respect for Jeff Garzak, but yes, this divide was more broadly the Bitcoin Foundation, and then us. Later, what happened is then the dark wallet happened much later, and we kind of drew a line in the sand, and it kind of snowballed, and it became an open conflict. But then I left to Syria, and it actually ended up with.
Let's not go there yet. So I just want to get this correct. So Gavin Andresen, in your words, had more of a corporate bank integrated kind of ideology for what Bitcoin should be. Get some Silicon Valley funding, maybe put a corporate layer around it. Don't focus on privacy because DigiCash couldn't function without the banks. Would you frame that as what Gavin Andresen was pushing for?
It's a bit of a simplification, but broadly, yes. Because, for example, I made the Bitcoin 2011, 2012 conferences. They then stole that, and they made the Bitcoin 2013 conference. But the headline of the Bitcoin 2013 conference was Bitcoin Payments Innovation. So that was kind of like a dig at the earlier two Bitcoin conferences, which had speakers like, Rick Falkvinger, Birgitta, Cody, Max Kaiser, people that were like more on the ideological side of Bitcoin. But they kind of understood. So just to explain their mindset, they would often say things like, I'm a libertarian, but a libertarian in secret. So they didn't wear their politics necessarily. They kind of were like, oh, in the day, I work with, big banks and corporations, but actually what I'm doing is I'm infiltrating them. I don't know if they honestly believed that or if that's cope that they told themselves, but then we can see the consequence of that kind of ideology in crypto, and what it led to was just like a corporate hijacking of crypto. So a lot of the Blockstream guys who later filled that vacuum after the Bitcoin Foundation was destroyed, they ended up taking on that mantle, that role. And so, that's the cool group of people who like continued that kind of thing.
Yeah. Interesting. So basically, because there was evidence in the Epstein files that Jeffrey Epstein wanted that introduction that Sulaiman read out in the beginning to who were the Bitcoin people. From your perspective, how do you interpret that? Do you interpret that he already had a relationship with Bitcoin people, or do you interpret that he was just coming into the fold and he was trying to figure out who's who?
I honestly don't know, but from my perspective, probably he was like, oh, Bitcoin is a new thing because he's very connected to the tech people. So he's like, yo, Jason, put me in touch with the Bitcoin guys. And so Jason's like, okay, these two guys on my show, and sends him them, And then then he has this conversation with Donald, and you can see Donald's reply to it, where Epstein says something about serious misgivings about Bitcoin, but then from Donald's reply, we can kind of see probably it was about money laundering. These like, oh, money laundering's the big issue around Bitcoin. So I don't know what that conversation.
From your perspective, what do you think Jeffrey Epstein was interested in? Do you think he was interested in kind of like a VC, interesting from an operation, interested from maybe using it for illegal activities? Or have you got any perspective?
Honestly, don't know. Probably, I don't know. You probably know better than I do.
Well, I've got an opinion, but I would love to see what you're thinking. So, all right. So let's I think he tried to infiltrate as many parts of the community as he could, and I think he was also interested in using it. But so this seems to be the first. Any emails prior to this, like they're fake ones, where it was like Epstein as Satoshi Nakamoto. These were all fake ones. They're not in the actual files. They just circulated on Twitter. This looked like the first one. So he wanted to meet yourself and Gavin Andresen. Gavin Andresen allegedly declined the meeting. Do you have any reason to believe otherwise? Did he meet Jeffrey Epstein?
No, I'm not going to say he didn't. I honestly don't. I don't know anything about what Gavin Andresen.
Okay, so you know nothing about what happened between. Yeah, but you had a business. So at the time, you said you forked off a project. You were focusing on privacy. You later created CoinJoin with Luke Dash Jr. Is that correct?
No. I don't want to get. It's too complicated, that story. But okay. Yes, like.
You sure you don't want to tell it? It's actually very relevant because the Market Samurai guys are kind of in jail right now, and the Trump administration is putting them.
Like, if you want to know, I actually created with Peter Todd, and Peter Todd actually turned out to be working with an agent. So, and he was meant to be the chief scientist of Dark Wallet. But I don't want to get. That is a really interesting story.
I think it's really relevant. So, Sulaiman, do you mind if we go here? It might get a bit technical, but most people don't know these details. It's really
honestly, I thought if I go too deep into that, you'll be like, oh, he's trying to distract from the Epstein stuff. But if you want to go into Peter Todd, that stuff is fascinating.
All right, so hold on. Let's get this in order. So
let's do this. In terms of the Peter Todd story, Simon, do remember about it, and we'll come into it because it's more technical. I do want to go through some of the interactions and engagements he had. Amir Taaki with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm looking at an email from the 7th of July. So is there anything you got questions from a questions perspective, Simon, before the 7th of July? Because I do want to ask about these emails.
Yeah, okay, we'll go into that. I just want one more question. Yeah. You said that you and your business partner had a business. My question is, what was that business? And then you said that your business partner met with Jeffrey Epstein to potentially find about securing funding. What was the purpose of that meeting? And then you said that he came back and said we shouldn't take that funding. What was the extent of, like, when you were searching Jeffrey Epstein's name, was it clear he is who he is? Those are my three questions on that part.
Yeah. So what's the first was about my
what was
business.
The business? So you had a business partner. Was that
the business doing? Okay, yeah. So the business was called Bitcoin Consultancy, and I actually, in the Jason Calacanis podcast, I actually talk about the business that we're doing, and I talk about our plans for the business. And actually, interestingly, one of the plans for the business was to form a Bitcoin foundation. So you can see where Gavin Andresen and the other guys got the idea was from us. That was our plan. But actually, it was firstly a consultancy to help drive adoption of Bitcoin by businesses. It was also running the exchange, which was the biggest UK exchange on the market, second biggest after MTGOX. Originally, it was called Bitcoin, later rebranded to Intersango. That was why we were running out of Warsaw, because we turned from being a Bitcoin exchange in the UK to being an international exchange. And then thirdly, we were working on Bitcoin code. So like writing this Bitcoin implementation, which is still around. It's actually the fastest Bitcoin implementation, which is Lit Bitcoin. Now it's actually run by Eric Voskuil. So that's broadly the business. Now, what happened?
An actual incorporated company?
Yeah. It actually had many companies, which is usual.
Okay.
Right?
Where were they incorporated? Was it which country?
UK, actually.
So it's a UK limited company. Is it like, if you looked it up on Companies House, you'll see it under the name of? Yeah. What was the name? Bitcoin Consulting.
Okay, Bitcoin Consultancy was one company, but for example, the exchange, we kept having to make new companies. because the banks were very hostile to us, and the banks kept shutting down our bank accounts. So we kept having to make new companies and spam the banks to try and open accounts to use it for our exchange. So it started getting very difficult. And so we have like loads of companies. I can't remember, like into Rompi, into Sango, into this, into that. I can't remember. You know, in England it costs $10.
So when you were seeking funding, was that primarily for the exchange and an alternative implementation of Bitcoin?
Actually, we weren't actively seeking funding. The main thing that we were seeking is because our bank accounts kept getting shut down for the exchange, which is a big issue because what would happen would be the exchange would be running and suddenly the bank would just close the account. And then we'd panic and randomly they'd just say, your account is closed. And then 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, they would send us a check in the mail. And we've got a piece of paper, a check. We have to find now a new bank account. We have to quickly open a new bank account, deposit the check, integrate the bank account into our web systems. So we can, because you know, like it's reading the deposits from the bank account and doing the withdrawal, etc. You have to do all that, and it was a nightmare. It was literally like a full-time job, just doing that. And so what we were interested in was people with connections who could get us a bank account, who could allow us to operate without being shut down all the time.
And was that the essence of the meeting with Jeffrey Epstein, to figure out whether he could help you with banking, or what do you think it was?
So we actually had like meetings with various people, like lawyers and stuff like that. Head of a bank, etc. We even met with like a major, what's it called, like a telecom company in South Africa, one of the big five ones, one of the big ones.
What about the meeting with Jeffrey Epstein? What was that? What was the premise of that? Was it just to talk about Bitcoin? Was it to get funding? Was it to get a bank account?
So it was Epstein emailed us, and first thing I do is I look him up on Wikipedia. I'm like, oh, the guy's a billionaire. I didn't think much beyond that, but there was a small, like a sentence. He didn't have much on the Wikipedia. You can probably go back and find it, right? It was like literally like a paragraph or a couple of paragraphs, and one of them said he has allegations, of child stuff, and I'm stupid. I'm like young and 21, and I was like, oh, he's a billionaire. My co-founder, he was the one actually that said, bro, this like not good,
Yeah, how soon?
So anyway,
after that was that. So how soon after your engagement with Epstein and you look him up on Wikipedia, does your co-founder then come to you and say, this guy's not a good guy?
I'm getting to that, but like, let me. So this was like our initial conversation actually, but I was like, oh, he's a billionaire. But my co-founder was like, let's be a bit cautious. So anyway, then I replied back. So then he's actually in New York, my co-founder, unrelated to Epstein. And that's when I email Epstein back, the one where I'm like, oh, I tried to call you, it didn't get through. My co-founder's in New York. If you want, you can meet him. So my co-founder goes to check him out. I don't know what happened in that meeting, if anything happened,
How do you not know?
Then later...
Wait 1 second. How do you not know what happened in the meeting? He's your co-founder.
I mean, but I didn't really question him that much. Like, he came back. We're very busy. It's not something I was interested in that much. He comes back.
I mean, that.
One second,
just a question. That doesn't make sense because you're like a young 21.
It does make.
And let me explain to you.
Let me just. If I finish, it'll be clear.
Yeah.
So he comes back, and he goes, "Nah, this guy's bad news." He just kills it. It stops it. I go, okay, he's the business guy, I'm the dev, so I trust his judgment, and that was that. We're so busy, we're doing loads of shit, I've never thought about it ever again. Later, Epstein did email me, which you can see in the archives, but I never respond to him after that. That was the end of it. My co-founder said it's dead. Okay. It's like, that's it.
So I'm going to come to the email in a second.
I don't know what the co-founder really, if he saw something. I wonder about that now.
What's his
But
name
back then
again?
I was
Sorry?
Donald Norman.
Donald
You can
Norman.
see him in the email as well. He replies back after the meeting with Epstein, talking about money laundering.
Are you still in touch with Donald?
Kinda. He's actually suing me. We're in a court case.
Okay,
I
I just want to.
yeah.
I just want to bring this back one second, if you can hear me. I know some people are saying my mic's a bit low, but what I don't get is this claim that you're making that you're a 21-year-old, as you said quite rightly, a billionaire comes and speaks to you, you get excited, and so how do you go from that being excited? He goes to a meeting with your founder, and you don't know the specifics of like how the conversation occurred.
I mean, my founder is the business guy, and he's doing the business stuff. We didn't really talk about it that much.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Okay. Let me just read this email that you're referring to for the audience. So on June the 12th, and hopefully people can hear me a lot better now. On June the 12th, basically Epstein writes an email to you, I presume, and says www.jeffreyepstein.org. Amir, the Bitcoin idea is brilliant, but I suggest has some serious downsides, as I'm sure you are aware. If you can find time, please call my office. So this is on June the 12th. What is this Bitcoin idea that you asked him for, or told him about, that he thought was brilliant? And what's the exchange before that? Because quite clearly there's some interaction, engagement, conversations that happened before this.
No, it's all just on the email. There's no other interaction. And also, I think he's just talking about Bitcoin, the Bitcoin idea. I don't think he's talking about like any particular idea.
Do we have the email before this? Because quite clearly this isn't the start. Simon, I don't know if you're aware, but quite clearly this isn't the start of a conversation. He's talking about you relaying an idea that he believes to be brilliant. What is this idea that he believes to be brilliant, and where do you relay this idea to him?
I don't know. Honestly, I think he's just talking about Bitcoin. I mean, that's just how.
So you don't know the idea that you relate to him? That was brilliant.
I don't know. Link the email in the chat. Let me read it.
Yeah, sure. Let me see how I saved it as 4/2026. Okay, I want to put it on here. And guys,
Can you put it on the screen? Can you put it on the screen, Sulaiman, or you can't do that?
No, I'm gonna do it now.
Okay.
And as you all know, I'm not the most technological advanced. So, Amir, even if you don't like what I say here, don't try and hack me, bro.
Honestly, I'm not bothered. Like, the history is what it is. Like, I'm just giving the facts.
Yeah.
Believe it or don't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're here to get down to the bottom of, right? 2:15.
And honestly, like, I was actually in favor of, taking his money. But luckily, my co-founder had the business smarts and was like, no, stay away from him. He's bad news. So shows you.
So he did confirm he wanted to invest in the business. Or...
Pardon?
So when you said you were in favor of taking the money, he did confirm that he wanted to invest in the business.
No, he didn't propose anything. It's just like, I was like, oh, billionaire,
Okay, so I've got the email on there. You can see the email at the bottom. That's the email I'm referring to. It says, Amir, the Bitcoin idea is brilliant. What's this Bitcoin idea that is brilliant?
It's Bitcoin. Like, if you look at Donald Norman's reply to that, I don't remember exactly, but I think I CC'd this to Donald, and so Donald replied back, or Donald replied back afterwards later to something else. But anyway, Donald's like addressing the Bitcoin idea. If you find that email, it will make it more clear for you, maybe.
So the reason I'm asking you the question, and hopefully the audio is better, let me know. But the reason I'm asking the question is because that engagement, or that email at the bottom, you can see on the what we can see at the bottom, quite clearly seems to show that you've had either one, if not more, conversations directly with Jeffrey Epstein. But you're saying you don't remember those conversations.
No, I'm not saying I don't remember. I said I have never talked with Jeffrey Epstein. Like, I've never. You can see here, I was trying to get a phone call with him. I didn't manage to get a phone call with him.
I'm not talking about the email above. We're gonna come on to that. I'm talking about the email at the bottom, which is the June 12th email. On the June 12th email, 2011, he says, Amir, the Bitcoin idea is brilliant, but I suggest has some serious downsides, as I'm sure you're aware. If you can find time, please call my office. Now, I'm not asking about what happened after that. We're going to come to that. I'm saying that quite clearly suggests that something happened before. There was a conversation. We don't know what the email is, if there was an email or not. I'm not sure if you know, Simon. But there quite clearly has been some kind of engagement where you relayed some ideas, you relayed some thoughts, and...
It's not clear. Okay.
But that's why you're here to explain that to us, because you're the person we're talking about.
First, the email... It shows that I haven't met him IRL yet. I haven't had a phone call with him. But what you're implying is maybe there was some other channel where we were communicating that wasn't these emails. But what I'm saying is, first of all, back then, I only used email. I didn't use, I don't know what even there was back then, MSN Messenger. But I literally just used email in 2011. That was my sole means. An IRC, but I don't think Jeffrey Epstein used IRC.
Okay, so the why I'm asking the question is because it just makes no sense to me, because if you look at what the sentence is saying, you did relay some kind of idea to him. Now, this, unless he's creating this from the figment of his imagination, which I doubt, quite clearly there's been a conversation before that where you said you've had some kind of engagement. Now, you're saying you didn't have that engagement, but then this email makes no sense.
What can I say? You can read it however you want to read it. But I'm saying...
I'm not being mean, but I'm not reading it how I want to read it. I'm reading it as a statement which quite clearly...
Okay, tell me what you think.
No, it's not what I think, Amir. It literally says, Amir, the Bitcoin idea is brilliant. So if you say something to me now and I'm like, guess what? Amir, what you just said is brilliant. I've said it based on something that you said to me before this. So that...
So just a quick question. Is this the first email that he sends me? Or is it like... Is there other emails before this? Because I haven't actually checked all the emails.
Well, from my understanding it is, but Simon can clarify. Simon, is this the first email that he sends, Amir?
Yeah, this is the first one I've seen. I haven't seen any others.
So he's just reaching out and he's going, Amir, the Bitcoin idea is brilliant. I mean, Bitcoin's new back then. So it's not Bitcoin. Nowadays, maybe if you said the Bitcoin idea, people are like, which Bitcoin idea? But you're talking about 2011. Nobody's heard of Bitcoin. So when you talk about the Bitcoin idea, they're like the Bitcoin idea.
Okay.
But okay, if you don't believe it, don't believe it. But this is my point of view, and I got nothing to say about that.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. I mean, just to be altruistic, or to be very like as altruistic as we can be based on this email. If I read this normally, it seems to me like there was some kind of engagement. But if I was to read it very altruistically, it could mean that he means, oh, guess what? The idea of Bitcoin is brilliant, and he's just very bad at sentence structure. So there is a possibility it could mean that. But to me, when I read it normally, and I just want to be as fair as possible, I'm not here to try and... But to me, it does seem like there was some kind of engagement before that, just reading the email.
And I'll add, in 2011, nobody knew what Bitcoin is, and so I think what Amir is saying is consistent, like in terms of how people might have communicated at that time.
Yeah. So it then says, "Hello, Jeffrey. This is now about 4 weeks later. You reply, and you say we did not get a meet. Sorry."
It's like a 21-year-old, how a 21-year-old writes when they're like new and fresh, and they go, "Hello, Jeffrey. Amir Taaki."
Yeah, that's
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You see, like literally put my title as Bitcoin.
Yeah, fair enough. I understand that. And you are quite young at that time, right? Now it says, and so you're 21 at that time, right? You saying?
I mean, I was born in '88, so we can calculate it. My math is not like
23, yeah. Okay. So So he says, quote, "We did not get a meeting arranged yet with your secretary." Again, I presume you mean that you didn't get, like, you didn't try to. Nonetheless, one of the members of our group is now in New... Sorry.
Cool. I tried to call his secretary. You see, he's giving a phone number. Please, I think that blacked out bit is a telephone number.
Right.
So he's like saying, and I tried to call. I don't know if I tried to call once or more times. I honestly don't remember. Actually, like reading the emails, like a lot of stuff I forgot came back to me. But
which is fair enough. It has been 12 years, and you've been through a lot since then, so that's fair enough.
So yeah, we called, and then that's me going, "Oh, my co-founder," which I call one of the members of our group, is in New York, and so I gave my co-founder contacts, and my co-founder in New York, but he went to the island and did visit Epstein, and then after that came back to Poland where we were based.
Okay. And so the second email you've already explained, because you said that your co-founder did indeed meet Jeffrey Epstein. Where did he meet him? At Epstein's, which place of Epstein did he meet him?
I think the islands. He said he went to an island.
So your co-founder went to Jeffrey Epstein's island to meet Jeffrey Epstein?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
So he did.
That's what I'm saying. When he came back, he just was like, "No." We're like, and he stopped it. He's like, "No, we don't want to talk with Jeffrey Epstein." That's why I wonder, I'm like wondering like if something happened or he saw something. Maybe not. But
Okay, so your co-founder didn't meet him in New York, is what I thought you meant first, but your co-founder actually went to Epstein Island to meet him. How long was your co-founder in Epstein Island?
I don't know. Not long. I think he just kind of
a day, 2 days, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Like how long?
Probably like a few hours or something.
What?
Honestly,
what?
Huh?
Sorry, do continue.
I mean, I didn't really question in depth, but I think it was a brief meeting.
I don't understand that bit. Like he flew to Jeffrey Epstein's island for a few hours and then flew back, but he only went for a few hours, or he went for a day? Like you don't know how long he went for.
He didn't go for a week. He didn't go.
Has Amir broken up, or is that me?
We lost him, yeah.
Well, I've got some more questions for him, so hopefully he's back. Sorry.
Hello,
Amir,
testing. Huh?
Oh, sorry, you're back. Sorry, you broke off for a few seconds. Do continue.
I'm in shitty Middle Eastern internet. But anyway.
Yeah.
He went to Epstein Island. I don't think he stayed overnight. He had like a meeting with Epstein and he left and then he came back. So
he goes to Jeffrey Epstein's island. He allegedly maybe goes for a week. You don't think he stayed overnight, but you can't remember. Something happens in the island. Sorry, go ahead.
Literally, like, my co-founder's traveling to the US. He has meetings with people. I don't question his itinerary. Like, oh, you spent how long in this place? How long in this place? But I do not. He did tell me back then that he went to this billionaire's island, which was Jeffrey Epstein, and he had a meeting with him. But after the meeting, he came back and he for some reason or other, he didn't want any association with Epstein. So I'm telling you that info. I didn't need to tell you that info.
No,
but that is what happened.
Honesty. I appreciate honesty because I thought that you met in New York first. So I'm not. Sorry, do continue.
I'm just telling you for the sake of the record of his history, what happened. I don't have any agenda or anything to hide. Everything is how it happened.
I understand that, and maybe you can put it down to possibly recklessness, or you're maybe I don't know. You're young, and I think you mentioned previously that you were. I mean, your name's 420, so you're probably taking a bit of narcotics and maybe not aware of what's going on. I presume, because
I mean, Silk Road was like a big reason for Bitcoin. It was like a very anti-authoritarian, subversive technology. It was amazing when it existed. It was like, oh, maybe we can use agorism, we can use free trade to break the deadlock governments have of fiat money and using it to fund war. Like literally, that was the time when Iraq, Afghanistan war happened, where 2 million people died in the Middle East.
Exactly.
It was like back then, everybody was like, that is absolutely fucking crazy. Yet today, we're doing more war. So,
I agree. But just coming back to it, and I agree with what you said there. But the issue is this, that you not being aware of, as you mentioned earlier, like your partner has a meeting with a billionaire, which is just mind-blowing for someone who's 21 years old. It's an opportunity of a lifetime. His partner goes to Epstein Island to meet Jeffrey Epstein. You don't know how long it was. You don't know what the conversations were. You don't know what your partner was up to while he was there. You don't know if your partner maybe had some kind of blackmail against him. Like, you're not aware of any of those things, but what you do know is your partner went to Epstein Island, but you're just unaware of the rest of it, is what you're telling us, right?
Yeah, he didn't say much. He was just like, oh no, Epstein's bad news. We should stay away from him. And that's it.
And you didn't ask, like, why is he bad news? Why is he so bad news that I shouldn't get like $1 billion from him or $1 million?
He says it was because of these pedo stuff. So he actually, I mean, in an organization, when you've got people that are working on tech and you've got a guy doing business, the guy in business is responsible for the relations of like who you partner and who you take money with and stuff like that. And also doing due diligence on people. So me as a tech guy, I didn't do due diligence on, who we work with. And I'm not that smart, if I'm really honest. So that's why when I saw Epstein,
I'd say you're quite smart. You're into Bitcoin early. Apparently you're a hacker. But anyway,
I'm lacking in many areas.
Okay, but the thing, what you just said now is that Epstein, you said he's a pedo guy. How? And so I want to try and question that aspect of it, because obviously you mentioned that you read Wikipedia, you were aware of what was said on Wikipedia. Your partner still wanted to meet him. Your partner went to his private island, Jeffrey Epstein Island, to meet him. And then after the meeting in the island, he says he's a pedo guy. So what happened on the island that made your partner tell you that he's a pedo guy? So did your partner observe some kind of pedophilic behavior? Did he observe it? Did he view it? What happened?
I'm definitely wondering now, like now all this stuff happened, like things started going in my head. But at the time he was like, no, he's just bad news. Like, and he started talking about the stuff online. He goes, oh, he's got court cases. We don't need that kind of energy. So, maybe I honestly wonder.
Okay. And
but, I said I've got this court case with him.
Yeah.
And things between us did not end well, and there's a lot of beef between us. But I'm very thankful that he had the foresight for that. So hats off to him, and also hats off to Gavin Andresen if what you're saying is true as well. That he was just straight up like, no, that's the benefit of life experience, I guess. Like my co-founder, actually, he was also the same age as me, maybe a bit older, but he had like a background of parents that were working. I mean, I don't want to give too much of his life away, but parents that work in politics, and he also knew about business and banking and stuff like that. So he had some good insights there. I guess he knew what he was doing.
And then just another question, and then I don't know if Simon's got questions on this thread, because then we'll move on to the next item I wanted to speak about. But then it says, tonight or tomorrow should be fine. Sorry, I have been swamped. So did your friend also meet him in New York, or did he solely meeting in Epstein Island?
I mean, I don't want to say what did, but I think he just went to the island and met him. I don't think they met in New York. I think he was in New York, and he just kind of like went there, visited him, then came back, kind of thing. I don't know more specifics than that.
But the email seems to suggest that there was a meeting, because it says tonight or tomorrow should be fine. Sorry, I've been swamped. Your friend's in New York at the time. It seems like Epstein's confirming tonight or tomorrow, so it does seem like they possibly met.
Yeah.
But then that means he met more than once, right?
No, they met once. I'm sure of that.
So he didn't meet in New York.
No, I mean, okay. I'm not going to say they met on the island, but I think they met on the island, and they didn't meet in New York. That's my understanding of it.
Okay.
But we'd have to ask Donald himself what happened for his.
Well, I think it might be good if you can get Donald to have a conversation, because it seems like there's a lot of elaboration that needs to be. There needs to be a lot of illumination on this, because it does seem like a lot of things happen in that meeting. Maybe even things he saw in the island that made him claim that this guy is partaking in, as per what you said, pedo behavior. And so there is probably some kind of clarification. Did your friend see this? Did he view this? Did he observe this? Did he take part in this? These are genuine questions that I have about this.
I mean, yeah, but I don't know if I can get Donald, honestly. I mean, he doesn't he's like has beef with me, so.
Okay. Let's Simon, have you got any questions on this thread? Because then I want to go to this other image.
Two more on this part. Like when someone's in New York and they said, "I'll see you tomorrow." What was it, tonight or tomorrow? Did it say, or tomorrow or the day after? Like, surely going from New York to Epstein Island is a big logistics thing. Would that imply that he was going to just arrange a plane for him or something? I mean, it's just weird. If you're in New York and you're saying, "I'll meet you maybe tomorrow or the day after," it implies that they're meeting in New York. What makes you think they met on the island?
I don't know. It's just like a very faint old memory 12 years ago. I also misremember things a lot. So it could be they met in New York. But as far as I remember it, he mentioned going to the island to meet Epstein, or he talked something about the island, but I'm not sure. Could be wrong.
Okay. And my final question before we move on: what actually happened to that business? Did it get dissolved? Is it still alive? Did it go bankrupt, or what happened to it?
Well, as I was saying about the exchanges and the bank accounts, our bank account got closed after the Bitcoin 2012 conference, and then so there are three co-founders, me and the other co-founder, we just decided to shut it down. So we just closed it and imploded. And
who was the other co-founder?
Patrick Straitman. So we just dissolved. Oh yeah, there's like the famous post. We just dissolved the company.
Okay, so it was like a UK company, a Polish company, a big group, and you, in 2012, you just went around dissolving everything.
We didn't even close the companies, I don't think. We just dissolved.
Is it still alive today? Is it still open today?
You mean the company or the activities?
Just the company.
Maybe. I don't know, honestly.
Okay. But were you an actual director of the company, or were you just...
I was director of some of the companies.
Okay. So if we looked up Amir Taaki on Companies House, to see the company history.
Yeah. You'll see loads of companies from that period. So you'll be able to trace them all.
Okay. And just for the complete picture, like, Amir, I know I'm not just bringing up stuff because this was very public at the time. You used to talk about drug usage at the time and stuff. Are you saying your memory of these things, kind of, there was a lot of use of drug usage and stuff at the time, or is it just it was a long time?
You mean because I don't remember?
Yeah, are you saying you don't remember because was it to do with drug usage, or it's just because it was ages ago, or is it because you don't really remember stuff?
Do you remember stuff from 12 years ago like that?
No, I got a bad memory as well, so.
I don't need, I mean,
I'm just wondering what your explanation is, because I would just say, I don't remember everything from 12 years ago, and you're saying the same thing, yeah?
Yeah, pretty much. You're saying, like, what happened to, because, like, Companies House, you go on there, you create a company, and then you create another company. I literally would like just create companies like that, and then I'd just forget about them. And it was pretty much like that. We were like, oh, we need a company. All right, let's make a company. So it's like,
I mean, look,
like
that's fair enough. I can like look. I think many of us, when it comes to 12 years ago, 13 years ago, actually it's nearly 14 years ago, we're not going to know the details. You may overarchingly try and remember things vaguely. It's only when you reread things it may refresh your memory. So like I understand that could be the case. Is there any more questions you got on the Simon? Because if not, I've got the next.
No, let's go to the next thread.
Okay, so obviously you're an early Bitcoin guy. You know that your friend is allegedly on Epstein Island, your co-founder. You post this in a message board, I believe, and I'll read it to the audience.
Talk forum, this is where everyone was communicating then.
Sorry?
This is the Bitcoin Talk forum, is that correct, Amir?
Yeah, it was a really stupid joke, like really bad taste.
Let me read it, and then
but yeah, go for it.
So it says 2 16-year-olds together, 50 Bitcoin an hour. Right now, 50 Bitcoin an hour. What's that, like 5 million?
To be honest.
Is that 5
million? It was just kind of like
right now?
Scam kind of thing.
It's a what did you say? It's a scam.
What's the date of the post?
January 31st, 2011. What did you say? It's a scam.
Yeah, just like see who responds. Like maybe somebody can send some Bitcoin.
So you were scamming people.
It's like not even. It wasn't fully a scam. It was just like, not even barely any thought put into it. Just a kind of like troll joke, and it is. I was like young and stupid. Now I'm like, oh, that's
Wait, one second. There's something. Okay, so there's something that's a scam, and then there's something about trolling, and then there's something where it's legitimately happening. So you've said all three. Well, you said the first 2 points. Now a scam would mean that essentially what you've done is you claim that you're selling these 16-year-olds for prostitution, and then in reality there is no 16-year-old girls that you're basically you're not being a pimp to those 16-year-old girls, and you're just you're providing the Bitcoin wallet and then stealing someone's money. So that's one option. The other option is there are 16-year-old girls and boys, apparently, because it looks like I can see a boy there as well. And the third one is, it was a joke and I just posted it. So those are 3 options. You said the first one and you said the last one. Which one is it?
Yeah. It's a mix of both.
How can it be a mix?
I mean, have you ever posted stupid shit on the internet?
I've never posted something which would mean me prostituting a woman and then either using that to steal someone's money and then saying it's a joke as well. It's either you're stealing someone's money or it's a joke or you're prostituting, but it can't be a combination of all 3. It makes no sense.
Okay, have you ever posted anything on the internet that you didn't really think about? And look, I could have deleted this years ago when I saw it could be an issue. But I chose to leave it. Why? Because I don't need to delete anything from the internet. I chose to leave this up because I was like, okay, like people can see it, and it's like blatantly, obviously, in my opinion, quite obvious. Just like it's not like a serious post.
How many people sent you money?
None.
Is the wallet address on the post? Was there a wallet address connected to it, or?
No, it says DM me. But okay. What I could do, maybe, is we could get access to that account and you can check the DMs. And if you want to do that, you want to go to Thamos, whoever, I will give permission for you to have access to that account. As long as you're not doing any wrong.
Just for clarity, you don't have access to this account anymore.
No, but I'm sure you could get it from Thamos, so you can get access to DMs.
What's Thamos?
If you really want to see, like, did I get any money? So first of all, I don't know if anybody messaged or anything. But if you check my posting history from that time, you can see I'm posting loads of bullshit.
Why don't you have access to the account anymore?
Because I went to a war in Syria for like 2 years.
Well, we're going to cover that in a second, but...
Do you have access
Sorry, just to be clear, so the government took away your access to this account?
No, I lose access to all my shit on the internet. I don't have
you can't remember your password and you don't have access to the email. Or...
Pretty much. I don't have access to any of my stuff from 5 years ago.
The email, is it the email you can't access?
Don't know. I could access it if I wanted to. I could message.
You can get access, because I can log into the Bitcoin Talk forum and I've got all my account records.
I haven't been interested to log into it. Like, does anybody use it anymore? Is it relevant?
No, I'm just asking. You said you lost access. Does that mean you no longer have access to the email, so you can't reset your password?
I could get access if I wanted to, because I can message Themos. But yes, I lost the email. I forgot the password, and then also I lost interest in Bitcoin Talk, and I just haven't been on there for many years. I mean, I have.
Just for the record, Themos is the administrator of Bitcoin Talk Forum, but you could, if you needed to, if there was a subpoena and the court asked you to do it, you could get access to this account. Are you saying, or you don't think you can?
Maybe if Themos gave me access, which
no, if you just by you when you signed up for an account, you would have connected an email. Do you still?
No, not like that. But
you don't have the email. You don't have access to the email anymore.
I mean, I don't remember which email it is, but I think it might be the same email that's used in the Epstein thing, which is genjix@riseup.net. And I don't have access
to that email anymore.
No, I lost it when I went to Syria.
How do you lose access to an email?
When you go to a war zone, you're like, I didn't go on the computer for 3 months.
Sorry, it's got a username. It's got a username and a password, right? So did you lose the password to your email and you can't reset the password, or?
I don't know. It's so long. Like, I don't know. Do you have emails from like 10, 20 years ago still? Maybe you do. Fair play.
So for example, I don't have access. I used to own a domain from like 20 years ago, and I don't have that domain anymore, so I can no longer log into that email because it was hosted on a particular domain. What is this email hosted with?
RiseUp.
And you can't access that anymore.
I mean, maybe if I messaged the RiseUp people and I explained like some dramatic story. I mean, I don't think they give people access to emails even if you lose it as a policy, but maybe
there's no like reset password button on a cloud hosted environment or anything.
I don't know. I've lost the email. I don't even use it anymore.
All right, cool.
But
then okay, did anyone from your memory, did anyone respond to this and DM you?
Maybe one guy did respond, but then I don't think anything happened, if I remember correctly.
And did you send him a Bitcoin wallet address?
I don't think I did.
Did you ever receive any money for any of this?
No.
Okay. And your explanation is that, like, when someone contacted you in order to place an order, what did you reply? Do you remember?
I think I was just busy and I just kind of didn't really bother. And if you check, if you look at my account around that time, you can see I'm like selling things, I'm like offering services. So I'm doing all these like hustles to get Bitcoin. And this isn't really one of those hustles, but it was like, oh, I can be the first pimp in Bitcoin. I know it's like, it's not not good fame to want to have. Like, now I'm like, oh, But back then I thought
did you actually have any girls or boys that would be willing to?
You've seen me from that era. Like, I can literally send a video. Maybe I'll send a video in the chat. You can see what I'm like. I'm literally a kissless virgin. Like,
But you said you wanted to be the first pimp in Bitcoin.
I know, it's so stupid now I think about it. I'm like, oh, so cringe. But okay.
But did you actually have any girls and boys that would be willing to be sold?
Well,
So you had no one in the background that would be willing to sell themselves?
no.
So it was just you and a post, and then if someone DM'd you, did you ever give them a wallet address so that they could send you money? But
I
don't think so. Really. I did, but I didn't receive any money. That's for sure.
So look, I just let me be clear on this. I think your explanation on this one doesn't make sense, and I'll explain to you why. And I'll explain to you why, and I do want to hear your thoughts. So if you look, sorry,
because it's so well written.
Yeah, actually, yeah, because it is so well written. Because it literally says, if you look at the way you've broken it down, either if you're shitposting and someone's just chatting nonsense, there won't be a correlation in what they say. And what I mean by that is, in one post, I might be like, oh, you can have one boy, you can have two boys, you can have three boys, you can have one woman, two women, three men. There won't be this correlation. What I'm seeing on this post is there is correlation. It's quite clear that you had two girls and one boy, and you've done a combination of different modes.
Okay, so one thing that doesn't make sense is why is one person 20 Bitcoin and two people is 50? Surely it'd be less, right? So there's like a big inconsistency. But anyway,
no, it's not.
You're saying about how
is that that makes sense. You pay more for two.
Two for what? Two is less. No, two is usually priced less than one times two. Anyway, don't worry about that.
That makes no.
But if you look, what I'm saying is you're going like.
Amir, you're not making sense. Can I just explain to you why that's not wrong? So first of all, according to the combinations, you got two girls and one boy, and you've done different combinations, which shows that that's the combinations you've based it on. The second thing is you have done the opposite of what you're saying. When there's one girl or one boy, you're charging 20 Bitcoins. When there's two, either a girl and a boy or two girls, then you're charging 50 Bitcoin. That makes sense. You pay more for more people.
No, yeah, but what I'm saying is, you see, two of the ones would be 40. I can't believe we're having this convo, but all right.
Yeah, but again, I presume
with the combo, it would be 25 each.
I understand that what you're saying, but again, from my understanding.
But look, if you don't believe,
maybe you gotta pay more for a three.
By the way, I just want to talk also about the shitposting thing. You're talking about shitposting.
No, but
today,
Amir,
people write in this style. But if you look at my posts, then you will see what shitposting style is like, and shitposting style.
I don't need to look at. Look, let me respond to this. Let me respond to this. I don't need to look at your other posts. I can just look at what you've tweeted here.
Yeah.
And if you could provide evidence for other things, it's fine. But you just need.
First of all, it's not a shitpost. It's a troll, which is different. But also, you're saying, it can't be a troll because it's not in the shitpost style. But anyway, I'm saying all of my posts, if you look in this time, are in this style because that's how we used to write back then on the forums, was in Reddit style. Today, it's different. When people shitpost, they have, like all lower caps, tons of slang. So, I'm saying it's like there was literally no thought. It was like, you can see there's a consistent posting history in that time, posting random bullshit. And I was like, oh yeah, this would be funny. Oh yeah, wonder if something will happen, maybe get some Bitcoin, post it, never think about it ever again for several years,
Okay,
maybe someone messaged, but I was doing other shit and I didn't even care that much.
That's two very
let me respond to that. So the problem you've got is that your initial claim was you were trolling and you never had any thought and you wrote it down. Now, when you look at this, there is actual thought that's gone into it. It's quite clearly that there's two girls and one boy. It makes sense in the sense of one is less, two you charge more for. The third point of it is you quite clearly stated out what the law in the UK is. You talked about the specifics like pay up front, anything goes, can role play, and then PM or post here. So this notion or this idea that you didn't think this through makes no sense whatsoever. And so now you can say, I thought it through, but it was a scam. I thought it through, but I thought it's even more hilarious if it, I don't know, whatever it is. Or the other one is, I did have those people. But to make it look like this post doesn't make sense, or it's just random, is clearly not the case. Because when I look at it, there's a combination on the first one of 2 girls. On the second one is 1 boy and 1 girl. The third one is just 1 girl. And then the fourth one is just 1 boy, which when you mix and match, that makes sense. Now, if you'd said something like, I don't know, 3 boys and 1 girl, and then another one you said 1 and 2, and there was a contradiction, then that would make sense.
I mean, man, you can analyze this as much as you want. I'm just telling you what is the thing that I said.
Amir, the bit that doesn't quite make sense to me, that there's a real difference between I was joking and then the next sentence you said, I was just trying to see if I could get some Bitcoin. Because if you're trying to get some Bitcoin, that implies that you're either going to steal someone's Bitcoin and not deliver the goods, or you had the goods, but you wouldn't have got any Bitcoin. Either you were trying to take someone's Bitcoin, or you were trying to engage in the service.
It was a joke. What can I say?
Yeah, but you just said it's a joke, and I was just trying to see if I could get some Bitcoin. Do you see what I'm saying?
I didn't really think it through.
No, you just said that now. I'm just saying you just said that now.
Said what?
You just said it was a joke. I just wanted to see if I could get some Bitcoin.
Uh-huh. I mean, what can I say? Just look at the similar posts from that period and see if it fits the general pattern. I'm not saying, I mean, you can believe what you want to believe, but anybody else who's watching, they can make their own judgment. And this is what I'm saying. It wasn't some like big business plan. It's like a very poor taste post made quite young and very stupid.
For the record, have you ever exchanged a girl or a boy for Bitcoin?
No. But I did think it would be like edgy to be the first pimp.
So you wanted to exchange, but you didn't do it. You wanted to do it.
I just wanted to have the post, so it'd be like, oh, I did that. But now I'm like, yeah, it's kind of.
So you were trying to just build a brand of being a pimp.
No, honestly, you're thinking about it more than I thought about it. It's literally just a post that I made randomly.
But you can see why this is relevant, right? First of all, you put this tweet out about these 16-year-old girls and boys that you're pimping out, either as a joke or not, or as a way of scamming someone, whichever explanation you want to go with on that. And then your friend, just a few months later, is on Epstein's island and talks about pedo behavior.
What can I say?
Okay. Any more questions on Simon? Because then I wanted to bring it onto the other thing, and then you can ask that question that you had previously.
No, I reckon let's go to, I think there's a final thread, and then I'd be curious about asking Amir's opinion on some of the people he was talking about earlier.
Yeah. The other point, I don't know which thread you're referring to, because...
it just as in the ISIS stuff.
Oh, yeah, okay. So the other thing I wanted to speak to you about, Amir, and I don't know how to take these things off on here, but the other thing I wanted you to...
I was just going to say, this post, I could have deleted it like years ago when people brought it up for the first time, but I chose not to delete it.
You claim that you didn't have access, right?
I mean, I can get access. I know the guy that runs the forum. But I thought it was better to leave it because I don't want to.
That might be good for you to get access, because there's serious question marks about whether you did get paid or not.
Oh,
so if you can get access, that would be good. Maybe it may elucidate and illuminate us on whether it was just for bans and there was nothing in it, and you were just doing it as, and you weren't. I mean, you were young, but you weren't like crazy young. You're like 23 years old. Yeah. Anyway, so I wouldn't go.
But it's stupid, and I'm like,
okay, like it being stupid is fine. Like everyone does stupid things, and I don't think you were that young. But that being said, look, everyone does stupid things. That's not the issue. The issue is when you look at the depth and breadth of what's being said, and then you look at your explanation, which doesn't fully make sense. Like at the one hand, you're saying you're trying to make Bitcoin. On the other hand, you're saying you're trying to scam people. On the other hand, you're saying there was no women. Then you're saying it's just for trolls. Some of that just like is a bit of a contradictory. But anyway, let's just move on to the next bit. So if you do get the access, maybe that'll clarify, and maybe it is just that you're, under pressure trying to explain something on the spot. Now, the other question I've got
Pressure.
is, sorry?
Relax. Like, honestly, I'm giving you the info, and you can believe it or not believe it.
Well, yeah, we appreciate you coming on for sure. The other question I've got for you is that you mentioned you went to Syria for 2 years. Do you want to explain what made you go to Syria and who you were fighting with and against?
I was in Syria 3.5 years.
Okay. What year?
2015 and 2016.
Okay.
And then also 2019.
Okay.
That year.
So just for context, in 2011, the same year that these posts happened, that's when we had Arab Spring, and then the dirty Syrian war broke out. There were multiple factions. There was an ISIS invasion, which I believe and most people believe were connected to Mossad, CIA, Western operations.
This is well documented. It's like, not even I believe. It was literally like, you look at the origin story of ISIS. There was like clearly a huge US role that was played in that. And we know the CIA loves these like Islamist groups. So
yeah, I completely agree with that. So the Islamist group was manufactured as a Western construct in order to destabilize. And so what you're saying is that, okay, the dirty war started 2011. And then in 2015, 4 years after it started, are you Syrian, by the way?
I presume it's Kurdish.
I'm not Kurdish. I'm not Syrian.
Oh.
My dad is Persian and my mum is English. So it's not related at all to ethnicity. It's not related to religion. It's not even related to ISIS. It's purely related to ideology.
Okay, so what was it about in 2015? What was it that made you take the decision? And I'm assuming you were in UK in 2015, is that correct?
I was actually in Spain, in Catalonia.
Okay, so you were in Spain, and what made you take that decision to go to Syria and fight ISIS?
So the Kurds are like, they're a very old ethnic group in the Middle East, and these like nation states that exist in the Middle East, such as Turkey, are Western constructs which have completely unnatural borders. And the Middle East is like, it's a very diverse place. It's like with all these different groups living side by side. And Turkey as a state had this policy of like assimilation and erasing local identity, and in particular against the Kurds. And they actually nearly succeeded in doing that in the 70s and 80s, until like the PKK started to resist against Turkey. What happened was then there was like the PKK actually started off as this nationalistic Stalinist group, and Turkey erupted into this civil war. And it was a brutal civil war that spiraled into this like incredible amount of violence, where tens of thousands of people on both sides were killed. And eventually the leader of the PKK, Öcalan, he got captured and he got taken to jail. And when he was in jail, he started to ask a question, which was, the Middle East is the birthplace of human civilization. It's the origin of many of the world's major religions and philosophies. Why is it that in the last 100 years or so, there's been this problem in the Middle East of ethnic cleansing, genocide, religious fundamentalism? And he kind of came to this conclusion that actually the nation state is, it's a Western political model. Like nation states in Europe actually came after a really long extended period of erasure of local community Like 100 years ago, 40% of France used to speak a language called Occitan. That was actually a policy by the French state to eliminate that ethnic group, to have a homogenous French society. And the thing is, the Middle East has not undergone this transformation, this like brutal period of suppression of local community, but it has had this nation states that were imported, like Turkey, like other places. And the thing is that, and also the Syrian state. The thing is that because the Middle East is this social fabric, these nation states have to rely on authoritarianism in order to maintain their power. And this is also the issue of Israel as well, as a racist, nationalistic state, which is denying identities of people that live in that region. And so what Öcalan came to this conclusion is that the Western model of the nation state doesn't fit the Middle East, and instead we need to create a new movement in the Middle East, a new type of civilization that he calls democratic civilization. And so I found the political proposal of the YPG, of Rojava, a very exciting prospect to resolve some of the fundamental contradictions in the Middle East. Actually, what happened was, I like to read a lot of Wikipedia, and I was reading about PEJAK, which is a rebel group in Iran, and it actually said that 15,000 feminist fighters are in PEJAK fighting the Iranian government. And so I found that very interesting. And I started to read more about the PKK, and I thought the PKK was a Stalinist organization. But then when I actually started to read their materials, their actual things that they write, it was talking about a lot of interesting ideas like decentralized economics, stuff like that. I had already been following the Syrian civil war for more than a year. The Syrian civil war is probably the best documented war in human history. There used to be this subreddit called Syrian Civil War, and it had so many factions on there. It had ISIS people, it had Assad people, it had Hezbollah, it had like Americans, it had YPG, it had all of and everybody was like discussing. And so I was already reading about that. But when I started reading more about the PKK, and I found out there was this region in North Syria, I became very interested in their ambitious political projects and trying to learn more about it. But there wasn't any info on the internet at that time. And that was when ISIS attacked Kobani, and it looked like Kobani was about to fall. And so I felt, as a political revolutionary, that if I didn't go and help out with that, if I didn't go in the hour of need and offer what I can, I would be inauthentic. I would not be living according to my beliefs or ideology. And it wasn't a decision I made. It was kind of like I felt I had to do this, and even though I didn't want to do it, I was like, well, I'm probably going to die. I was like certain I was going to die. I felt pulled by that kind of sense of destiny, and it was kind of like just watching yourself go into that. It's like being disembodied. So I went there, and I also became fluent in Kurdish, and I was on the front line for 3.5 months. I later left. I started working on economic projects later on, and I started working more on technical projects. So it was purely ideological because I think the Middle East have a lot of potential, but I think the Middle East needs to have some change. There needs to be like a fundamental kind of reform. And I think, what's up? No, it's my friend's baby boy. I have to. So anyway, I think the Middle East can do something great, but there are fundamental.
So would you frame it as ideological reasons? You like the ideology behind the code? would you agree with this statement that the Kurdistan project, kind of like a people without a home, the Western interests and the CIA ended up weaponizing and utilizing, and they ended up guarding all the oil in Syria for the CIA?
And just to add to that question, that
I don't think the US has that much interest in. I think yes, they kind of see Kurds as leverage that they can use, but in the end of the day, in this region now, pragmatism rules, and Al-Shara, Jilani, and Turkey and Saudi, those are the guys that are holding the cards, basically.
Sure, but back then, right, the Kurds in general were serving a Western interest for the CIA.
The Kurds have their own, so it's important to understand, the Kurds have their own interests, they have their own ideology, and also the Kurdish movement was actually founded by Kurds that were fighting with the PLO, the Palestinians in Bekaa Valley. So and later on, they were actually funded by Assad, Assad's
Amir,
father.
Can I just clarify the point? So I think I don't disagree that the YPG or later the SDF were in conflict with ISIS, and there's no doubt that ISIS was funded, financed, and supported by the United States of America, Israel, and the Turks. No one disagrees with that. I think what the question is there's quite clear evidence that the SDF and the YPG, even though they may have their own internal belief system and views as per what made you enticed and you really believed in it to the extent that you put your life on the line, but that being said, despite them having their own viewpoint, there is quite clear, ample evidence, unequivocal, that the United States of America, through the Pentagon, the Department of Defense, funded, financed, supported the YPG and the SDF. Now, I guess the question I believe Simon is asking you is A, were you aware of that? And B, do you agree with that? Sorry.
The CIA supports Islamists.
No, I said the Pentagon. I said the Defense Department, yeah. I was clear.
Yeah. But just, so we're clear on that. The US actually has an internal, and it's actually the CIA that wins out most of the time. I think the Defense Department is subordinate to the CIA in terms of Middle East. But I've seen CIA in Rojava. They drive around in blacked out cars. In fact, I have a funny story where one of my good friends in YPG back in 2015, he was actually a defector from the UK Army from a base in Cyprus. He'd come, and he was such a funny guy. He was taking all these selfies going, I look so fucking cool in this, he was like, I'm gonna bang loads of chicks after we get back. That's what he was saying. But then what happened one day is these blacked out vehicles came. Oh yeah, he got on the Daily Mail. That was what happened. The Daily Mail was like, oh, a UK soldier defected, and they had these like his photos from Facebook on there. And then literally what happened, like pretty much instantly, these blacked out vehicles came up, and we were a unit of like 5-6 soldiers. I was the only non-professional soldier in that group. But then these guys came out in suits, and they were like, he has to come with us. And we were like, no, he's with us, he's not leaving. But they were like, no, he has to come with us. And there was like a standoff for a while. And the Kurds were like, he has to go with them. And then he was like forced to leave. And we never saw him ever again. So I wonder what happened to him. But that's my funny CIA story that I have. But I did see him a few times zooming about on the way, but we never interact with them.
But Amir, just coming back to the point, I think what I mentioned, you accept, right, that the YPG, the SDF, were financed, funded, and supported by the DoD, which is the Department of Defense of the United States of America.
I mean, kinda. It's not complete. I mean, the PKK is not funded by the US. They actually get a lot of funding from their European networks, and they do a lot of dodgy stuff as well.
Well, there's a reason why that. I mean, look, let's be clear. There's a reason why you've not been arrested when you went back to the United States of United Kingdom, and the reason is because you were with a US.
I had a terrorism investigation for 1 year. I was under house arrest.
And then what happened after that?
They dropped the charges.
Exactly. What happened to Shamima Begum?
I mean, she literally joined ISIS. I think agree. She should. She should probably be. I don't know about execution.
Well, she should be punished for sure. I have no disagreement with that whatsoever. I disagree with ISIS completely, vehemently, and I'm against the rebellion in Syria.
Honestly, I thought when I go back to UK, if anything, because I knew. So this is actually true. I think you can look this up. 3% of returning ISIS people were charged in the UK. Right. 25% of returning YPG fighters were charged. So actually more YPG were charged than actual ISIS people.
How many were actually punished though? I'm not talking about charged. Because, okay, you can be charged and it's because of stupidity, it's a lack of evidence, you're not being to trial. How many
I don't think YPG people should be charged. I don't think anything we did is criminal. I think in fact it's virtuous. I actually expected when I came back that they would give me a medal. Like if anything, I thought the police would pat me on the back and be like, "Well done." Actually, they didn't. They're like, "Oh, you're under arrest because of."
So I understand where you're coming from because we have people who join the IDF and they aren't charged. We have people who join ISIS and although they are charged, but joining ISIS is problematic. I think with your one, it's kind of more of a gray area. And what I mean by that is even though in your mind...
It's not gray area. It's completely... No. It's completely virtuous. I think their fight...
I don't think it's virtuous to be working with the DOD. I don't think it's virtuous to be working with the DOD. So I'm not saying it's black or white. I'm not saying it's bad as well. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying this element of it...
know something?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, listen, I'll tell you something that's really important to know.
Go for it.
A few months ago, I actually had a friend who's high up in the YPG tell me that the US came to them and said, if you go to Iran and fight, ally with Israel, we will give you everything you want. But the YPG refused because they didn't want to be like a proxy of the US. And then recently this stuff happened where the US dropped them like a stone and basically allied with Syria. And I heard this video from Trump, and you can find the video where he goes, "We gave the Kurds everything. We gave them oil, we gave them money, we gave them guns. But they're not fighting for us. They're fighting for themselves." That's what he said. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, holy shit. That's what happened. And I actually think maybe they should have been more pragmatic. Maybe they should have taken that deal. Because now what's happened is they were just eliminated. What can you do if you're eliminated? Nothing. So I understand though. I have Arab friends I've been speaking with about this, and they were going like, the Kurds went wrong by being America's bitch.
True.
Now, if you actually look, if you go on the internet and you search social ecology, Amir Taaki, there's actually an article which was cancellation by the UK anarchist left against me, where they're saying Amir Taaki is a fascist infiltrator inside of the Rojava movement. Why? Because Alexander Dugin, who his daughter was assassinated, and I was actually friends with his daughter. And the reason why I was friends with Dugin is because I actually went to meet Dugin to try and negotiate an alliance between the Kurds and Russia. And I was actually one of the people inside of that Rojava movement that was saying we should be closer more with Russia and Syria rather than the US. But Russia, the Kurds did have an alliance with Russia in Afrin, and Russia backstabbed them. And the thing is, you have to understand is that Russia has a very different style of foreign policy to the US. Russia is like a big mafia boss, where it's like you're loyal to me, or else. Whereas the US is like purely transactional. As soon as someone offers a better, higher value, they will flip, and both are really shitty situations to be in. But I was more on the side of that. But
Look,
Who
I
am
don't
to
want to.
judge, you know?
I don't want to demonize you about this because I understand your perspective, and I hope it doesn't come across like that, because I can see from your perspective that you've done things because of honorable reasons, based on your own mind. And I understand the complexities of war. That in the end, when you're in that situation, you're having to make certain choices, and unfortunately, the choice the Kurds made was to align with the United States of America. And as you said quite rightly, they betrayed them when the chance came, and this has always been the case with the issue with the Kurds and the Kurd separatist movement, where they are actually used as men for hire. Now, it's nice to hear that your friend said otherwise, but there are obviously a number of instances where Kurds have gone in at the behest of the United States of America.
I think they had a failure of leadership, and they probably didn't play the game so well, because I'm like now talking with some of my Arab friends, and they say like, oh, al-Shara, he's very pragmatic and he's very charismatic when he talks and sophisticated. I don't know anything much about the guy, but I have seen the CIA video where he's where I don't know if you've seen the CIA video, the guy who's talking about his meeting with al-Shara, and it's like an American. This is before al-Shara became public, and saying, oh, he's like charismatic, and that's when they realized he was their guy, that kind of stuff. And I think like in the Middle East, it's like, it's all like right now, everything's just playing out. It's just purely pragmatism. It's purely like, oh, you know, who can make deals with who. And a lot of the rhetoric that we hear, like, for example, Turkey saying they're anti-Israel, it's just purely for domestic consumption. But like everybody's like making alliances with Israel and shit.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's like the reality of like the stuff we live in now. Like,
yeah, I agree with you in terms of them making an alliance with Israel and everything you're saying on that. Simon, have you got any questions on this?
Yeah, just want to, for complete clarity, have you ever had interactions with any intelligence agencies when you went to Syria? Was it on the behalf of anything else other than you supporting for ideological reasons?
Nothing to do with Syria, but I did have an approach once by intelligence, but this was in 2011, where at the border, they detained me, and they actually tried to recruit me, and you know, I was like a bit shy, so I kind of went. I didn't want to. I didn't want anything to do with them. I was actually kind of like, you know, grossed out by it. But I kind of was polite and just kind of mumbled like, oh, you know, and they gave me their business card, but then I kind of chucked away the business card after that. So that was my.
What do you think they tried to recruit you for?
So they said, oh, we're interested in people like you, and I was like, oh, what kind of people is that? And they said, oh, you know, people that's involved with Anonymous, you know, that kind of stuff. They meant like, you know, hacker things.
In the hacker community, or would you say in the Bitcoin community specifically?
They didn't mention Bitcoin. They mentioned Anonymous, so maybe hacking and stuff like that. I don't know. And also, Bitcoin wasn't that big then, so.
So in 2011, on a border, you were approached and attended.
In the UK.
MI6?
Yeah.
Okay. So
if it's MI6
was interested in recruit. Sorry?
I don't know if it's MI6 per se. Like, okay. I don't know the layout.
Potential.
They were like.
They're all the same. Mossad, MI6, CIA. They seem to be a mafia. But they did try to recruit you because of your profile as a hacker. Is that what you're saying?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. And for the record, are you going to hack Sulaiman or myself? And
don't do it, Amir. Don't do it. Don't benefit the Zayos.
I'm not that kind of hacker, to be honest. I'm actually quite bad with computers. My main thing is algorithms and math and code and building things.
Yeah. I know you may not like this line of questioning, but Sulaiman and myself have been on the anti-Zionism fight. So if you end up hacking us, like, it's harmful for the cause.
Maybe someone will hack you and then you'll be like, must be Amir. Like, I don't know. But I'm not, honestly,
we're gonna
I'm
turn
not,
it.
I'm not even that motivated to hack people.
So
I've
what's
I
this
just-
question you got, Simon,
think
about you had some specific questions about Bitcoin, and then we can wrap up.
Yeah, I just want to ask you your opinion on two people. So, firstly, do you have any opinion on Gavin Andresen, whether he was ever turned by the CIA? Satoshi left the project when he joined the CIA. He vouched that Dr. Craig Wright was Satoshi Nakamoto. You said in your disputes with him, he tried to make a corporate shell around Bitcoin development ideologically. What's your perspective on Gavin Andresen?
Okay, so about the Craig Wright thing, that was like so convenient for Gavin Andresen that he was like, oh, this guy can be Satoshi and he can vouch for me as the head of Bitcoin. So I'm not sure he even believed he was Satoshi. I think it was just like so convenient for him that he could believe. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. And yeah, so what were you saying?
Do you ever think whether he was ever turned by intelligence agencies?
Look, I don't know, but he was very naive about politics, and so he was like part of this cohort of people that was like, I don't know if you know Charlie Shrem.
Yeah.
So Charlie Shrem, he made BitInstant, and he was also part of that group, the Bitcoin Foundation people, and he was like, oh, you know, the guys in the government, they're good guys like us. And he actually went to the regulators and he opened his books up, and he was like, he did it as a show of good faith. And he was like, oh, you know, they see that, you know, I'm like them and we're like each other and we just want to make the world a better place. And instead, what they did was they fucked him. They like used what he showed them to create a case against him, and he went to jail because of it. There's like ultimate naivety. You know, he obviously changed his mind later. But then also Gavin Andresen, he was like, oh, we need to go and educate the regulators about Bitcoin, to show them how it works, to get them on our side. And so that's why he went to the CIA. And when he made that post, everybody was like, oh, bro, what the fuck? What is he doing? It was kind of like that. It was like, there's no clue. He's like cluing up the enemy, basically. And it was just so stupid.
In your opinion, do you reckon he ever worked or was an asset of the CIA at any point?
Honestly, I don't want to speculate about it. But I can tell you who was an asset.
Yeah, so let's talk about Peter Todd.
So Peter Todd was, I mean, I don't know if he was back then. I mean, he's just become, he was always, I mean, anyway.
But yeah, ideologically, he's put a lot of posts out there that suggest he's
now he's saying a lot of very hateful things against Russians and stuff like that.
And Iran, but anyway, to nuclear, he thought that after October the 7th, they should drop a nuclear bomb on Palestine.
I'm not going to talk about him now, but I will talk about what he did, which is more important. Because, so he was an absolute nobody, and there was this Bitcoin Foundation, and Gavin Andresen put himself as the head of Bitcoin Foundation as its chief scientist. And then, you know, we opened this other side, we drew a line and we made another front to oppose the Bitcoin Foundation and oppose their corporate takeover of Bitcoin, which later this opposition that we started became Bitcoin maximalism. Like after I went to Syria, there was a power vacuum. Other people like Peter Todd and the Blockstream guys occupied that. They did a coup against Bitcoin Foundation. They took over cypherpunk, etc. But anyway, at the time, we opened the second front, the opposition. We had the Dark Wallet project, and Peter Todd was like an absolute nobody who, you know, back then I was on top, so I like lifted him up out of obscurity and I put him as the chief scientist of Dark Wallet, and that was like directly a pun against Gavin Andresen being the chief scientist of Bitcoin. And you can actually see that moniker is used in the BBC article about Dark Wallet, where it's actually about Dark Wallet being used by ISIS to fund ISIS. And you can see him in that documentary. And also there's another one about Spain. I think Cyber Squat in Spain or something. But anyway, it's BBC Click. But anyway, Peter Todd was our chief scientist of our project. In fact, he was living with me and he was my friend and we were hanging out all the time together. Can you imagine that? Like somebody you know.
Where was this?
And you make it. Huh?
Where were you living with Peter Todd?
2013. Spain, London, other places. He'd come stay with me. He's my friend. I'd hang out with him. We'd talk together about stuff, you know? Anyway, years later, his emails get leaked online. Somebody hacked his emails and leaked them online. The entire archive of his emails is on the internet. I have a copy of it. You can find it on Web Archive easily. In the emails, it shows that he is collaborating with a self-identified US intelligence agent. A guy says, I work for US intelligence, to stop Dark Wallet, to stop our team getting access to funding. And we weren't like a corporate startup. We were, you know, as the Epstein email says, open source radicals. We were fucking broke. We had no money. We literally like working on it because we believed in it. We were like literally had to live in squats because we had no money, because we're trying to fight for this thing, for Bitcoin, for freedom, etc. It was very difficult. It was a very difficult situation. And we're idealistic. We're trying to improve. We're trying to do something good. And Peter Todd is my friend, but he's actually secretly communicating with an intelligence agent to try and cuck us our funding. And you know, this is what happened. I'll tell you what happened exactly. You can find the thread on Bitcoin Talk. It was the CoinJoin Bounty Fund, where they said there was a post and it said, I think it was made by Gregory Maxwell. And Gregory Maxwell hates me. And I always assumed it was Gregory Maxwell that did this. But anyway, in the post, it says, this is the Bitcoin address. And this is a bounty to make the first implementation of CoinJoin. The first team in Bitcoin to make a CoinJoin wallet will get this money. And it says like, it literally says it like they will get sent all of the money. And so our team, we made it and we made the first coin, and I have the video of it. I can actually send the video. We actually made the first CoinJoin wallet, and you can see I post it in the thread. And then what happens is they change the rules. They edit the text in OP to say, as the people see, as the people that control the fund see fit to pay out to the so this is the video. I'm just posting it here. That's the video of that wallet. So they changed the rules retroactively. And then in your Peter Todd's emails, what you can see happening is with this guy, John Dillon creates a Bitcoin address, and Peter Todd sends the money to John Dillon's Bitcoin address so that John Dillon can send it back to another address, which is the new address they put as the bounty fund. So John Dillon can claim that he donated the majority of money to that CoinJoin fund, and that he objects to my team, Amir Taaki and his team, from receiving the money. So they used that as an excuse to stop us receiving the bounty that we, by the rules they set, should be able to claim. And I always assumed it was Gregory Maxwell, because the three people controlling the fund was Gregory Maxwell, Peter Willer, and Peter Todd. And I assumed that Gregory Maxwell, who fucking hates me, was the guy doing it. But no, it was my friend Peter Todd who was doing that. So crazy.
And
then even later, we actually made the dark wallet, which was an actual functioning wallet. It released alpha that did have also the CoinJoin, but like as a proper wallet. The first one was like more a prototype, and they were like, oh no, they're not allowed to get the money, blah. So we made a proper product and we shipped that as well. And they still gave us zero from this fund. They gave other people money, but they never gave us a single penny from that fund. And it was Peter Todd, who was meant to be my friend, who was meant to be our chief scientist, who was working with this guy. You can see it in his emails. The strange thing for me is all of this is known. And actually, I was telling people about this for years in Bitcoin. And I was like, it's fucking crazy. And people are like, oh, conspiracy theory. And I was like, no, you can see the emails yourself. Here's the archive. Here's the info. And people wouldn't even bother to look. But then what happened was there was that HBO documentary about Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask today. Yeah. So they used that in order to try and say that Peter Todd was Satoshi.
Yeah, I told them about that in the documentary. I said, oh, look, he's a fucking agent. This blah. I don't know why. Maybe they go, what do you think of Peter Todd or something? And I said, oh, he's a fucking agent. Look, here's all the evidence. They used that then to go, he must be Satoshi. So I literally, I was literally the reason why they said Peter Todd is Satoshi. But it was like, I don't know how they derived that. I think they just probably wanted to.
Yeah, it's so retarded. But just for the record, from your perspective, is Peter Todd Satoshi?
No, I think actually probably Paul LaRue's Satoshi. And if not Paul LaRue, then Dorian Nakamoto. But Paul LaRue's probably... I mean, I don't know. You probably know as good as I do, or better than I do. I like Paul LaRue.
Did you ever interact with Satoshi direct?
I did, yeah. You can see on the forums we're messaging. I was actually the one who started the WikiLeaks thing the money being sent to WikiLeaks. And then Satoshi freaked out about that. But the thing I was saying about Peter Todd is then after that documentary came out, then people lied to me. They were like, whoa, oh, Peter Todd's an agent? I was like, bro, I've been fucking telling you for years. There's not just one person, many people. And it's like somehow so-called libertarian anarchist type people in Bitcoin, they need like an authority, which in this case is HBO. They can't like see the evidence, and they need an authority to tell them what's true and not true. So that was kind of disappointing. But then the even crazy thing is the HBO documentary has basically like made the evidence that I presented historical fact, which it is fact. You can see the archive, and Peter Todd even admits it. He like doesn't even deny it when you ask him. But like, and actually, my friends have actually asked Peter Todd about it, and he would just go, "Well, we need nation states. We need nation states to make computers." And he's like a massive neoliberal, genocidal, NATO, pro-NATO, etc. But the weird thing is, not in fact
the Core v30 in the Knots v Core debate at the moment.
I'm not following that too closely.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just find it so strange that he's still invited to conferences. He's still invited to headline conferences. Everybody wants him as a keynote speaker. Nothing has happened as a consequence of this fact. Nobody has been. Everybody just kind of went, he's an agent. Okay.
So that makes sense that that makes sense that you were presenting him. I mean, that makes sense that you were presenting him as a agent, and they rephrased that and said that he's Satoshi Nakamoto. But Simon, have you got any other questions? Because we probably should be wrapping up sometime.
One more thread, just a quick answer. The Trump administration pardoned pretty much everybody, but put the Samurai Wallet guys in prison and didn't pardon them. That technology that they built was a wallet on top of CoinJoin. Was that your technology?
Yes. So actually, DarkFi, the project I'm working on now, in 2020. So 2019. I said I was in Syria. I came back, and then I literally flew straight from Syria to Osaka, DevCon, the Ethereum conference. And I was actually raising money, and what I was raising money for was a Bitcoin mixing wallet, like Samurai's doing. And I'm so lucky because I gradually started improving the design more and more, and I decided not to do the Samurai thing, but to do something more ambitious. So I actually respect the Samurai guys. But just another note about that. Also, the Tornado Cash, Roman Storm is relevant. I talk with him quite a bit as well. The fact that they pardoned a lot of other people, they legalized, shitcoin casino type stuff, but they still got crusade against anonymity crypto software. It just goes to show what they're afraid of. And they're trying to frighten us into compliance, into backing off. But actually, it's a signal of where we need to push hardest, because that's where we push and where we can punch them that it hurts the most. And we have to do it more, not less.
Okay, Sulaiman, I'm done. Amir, thank you for sharing. And again, I corrected the misinformation that I gave. I have no idea whether what you said is true or not, but I misrepresented what you did say. I corrected that, and I correct it here again.
Thank you so much. It's cool. It's no issue. Thank you.
Yeah, and look, I just want to thank Amir for coming on. Look, you've been on for 2 hours. You've answered every single question. The audience can decide.
It's crazy.
Sorry?
Time flies.
Time does fly, indeed. Yeah, and I'll let the audience decide whether they think that what you said is credible or not. I do still have question marks about a couple of things. It'd be great if you did have access to this forum, and it'd be great to have your business partner clarify what he was doing on Epstein Island. I think those would be 2 points of interest for me from this conversation. But other than that, I'll be honest with you, you have come across really genuine. You have come across as transparent, as honest as you can be. I want to be honest about that. And if I had to go on gut, which I don't really like going on gut, I do seem to believe a lot of what you said. But obviously, I can't base it on gut. You have to base it on the data and information.
Okay. Okay. I hope one day in the future we talk about real shit, politics.
Well, that's
changing.
Well, you're more than welcome to come on any of my shows, any of my spaces. That's literally what we do almost all day: is speak about geopolitics, speak about Zionism, speak about what's happening throughout the world, and try and fight against it. So that's something we do every day.
That's what Ray's into as well. Cool.
Yeah, Ray's great. Okay, thank you so much, Amir. Thank you, Simon, for joining. And obviously, it's on YouTube and it'll stay on there. There's no edits to this whatsoever.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, guys.
See you later.
Thanks a lot.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.